Yes. All right, for today, we've got 6 hours and 47 minutes of sleep. Look at this. Bed hair. Bed hair? I don't know. Oh, right. I have to look here so that I can get some practice in. Mm. All right. So, me likely have whoa, a lot of command prompts. That's scary. Okay, me likely have 90% autism or ADHD or both. And I've been thinking about getting diagnosed for since 2025, but I just can't do it. And so it took a lot of contemplation, on what the friction exactly is. And there's a lot of gloom, honestly. When I look into the data of people with, ADHD or either one of the two, they're kind of there's a pattern, okay? The pattern is that they don't really live long. A, B, a lot of them are homeless. C, nothing really works. And D, nothing really helps. So the whole diagnosis thing, if it was really built for me, it would be easy as hell, okay? But no, it's fucking impossible, and it is impossible. So I had to you know okay, what actually works for me? I have to ask that question. What works for me? What will I actually accept? And then I went through a process of oh, okay, let's look into online solutions. And I did. I looked into it, and then and conclusion was, hey, look, you still need to show up physically. Shit. So that's kind of the latest progress that I was on. And then I gave up entirely. Then I was super gloomy about it. I was like, oh, you know what? It's not designed for me at all. It's not supportive, whatever. And then I look it up as well. And people think the exact same way. A bunch of people, there's a death spiral of can't get diagnosed, can't get help since there's no diagnosis. And since they're disabled and stuff, then they can't really do shit and they can't get diagnosed. And also, if they do complete the loop, they can't really afford whatever, medication there is. So it's just not designed for at all to be compatible or helpful or anything. And maybe it would be a lot easier if I was in a more developed place, question mark, because who knows, maybe in US or China systems different, or maybe Europe is a lot more keen on these sort of things, right? In my head, the most compatible system would be I just go to a fucking website, and then I get diagnosed, and I get the papers, and it's digitally signed and shit, and then I use that digitally signed shit to get my person with disability card, because I want the disability card so that I can get discounts and stuff. So that's kind of the flow. But since I'm forced to be in real life, then I have to play around make cognition and what exactly is causing friction, and how to minimize it to zero, the cognitive load, friction, whatever you name it. Because I've got the thing that I shared before already. I've got the AOT compiler algorithm brain strategy thing going on, where that's how what I use to resume working out. Even though it's really hard for me to and the basic stuff eating, hygiene, all of that stuff, it's just AOT algorithm compiler brain thing. And the cleaning thing, I completed that by just staring at the thing, letting my brain parse the whole thing, and making just parse and map that, make a full compilation before execution happens. And my thesis on a full compilation would be parsing the whole thing. And then you can only parse if there's if you're collecting variables. So how do you collect variables? You stare at it, simple as that. So it's a weird thing, because I end up just staring at the thing, frozen, or walking around glancing at the thing. But it works for me, right? So now let's try the whole compiler algo brain thing on the whole oh, if I have to do a physical diagnosis, then what exactly? And I say AOT compiler whatever, but maybe it's just called contemplation. Who knows? Nah. Contemplation doesn't require physical. Does it? Actually, don't know. But yeah, my compiler strat algorithm thing just involves me staring at my kettlebells until something happens, staring at the shower until something happens, staring at the toothbrush until something happens, letting my brain passively do the thing. And then at some point, pass 1, 2, 3, 4, schema develop, audit pass, and sufficient efficiency scores met, full compilation, whatever. And then execution happens as a byproduct of you know with like least resistance efficiency. Like I don't really know, but I just know that action isn't really direct. I'm not really thinking of like I'm gonna do this thing with that thing with this in mind. No, it's all just like a byproduct of like, okay, this is like becomes like the path of least resistance, A, and B, it's like this achieves like a efficiency rating, and efficiency is something that I seek because I like efficiency. I dislike inefficiency. So now with like, yeah, if I have to like get diagnosed like physically and stuff, like what sort of strategy can I like use or whatever. So I was like gloomy and like whatever. And like, yeah, I shared already like that's a whole flow. But like the thing is, I already chose that I would see things till the end. A and B is that I exist, and since I exist, then it means that in because life is just one giant probability distribution, curve, table, whatever. It's just a giant probability distribution. Things that exist because there's unironically a reason, an efficiency to fill. So, you know, what inefficiency am I filling exactly? And it's been like many generations already, and so whatever traits that I've got preserved and passed along. And since it got preserved and passed along, then essentially something can work. I just need to like look into it or whatever. And as I contemplated, I essentially concluded that it's an architecture incompatibility. It's not like no, I'm broken, whatever, retarded, you name it. Technically, I am, yeah, but like it's all in relativity, okay? It just means in actuality, it's just architecture incompatibility because like if it was otherwise, then I simply wouldn't exist. Simple as that. So now, okay, focus, okay? Like, how am I gonna like solve the whole like oh I'm gonna get like diagnosed and how thing? Because I already went through like an intensive process of like what sort of like place that I want to go to like get diagnosed, and I dislike the private places because private places essentially they function in a completely different incentive structure where like they can kind of just like diagnose you with whatever the fuck they want, A, and give you whatever the fuck they want, B. There's like nothing really punishes them. If you fuck up, then that's it. There's no like scrutiny or anything. They can just close up shop and then create like a new LLC, whatever, or lose their license. But people don't need to know that. You could just like forge or whatever. But if you're like a pub a public doctor, then there's a lot of scrutiny and like it's like harder essentially. Then you have to like maintain stuff, and there's also less incentive. Just the whole incentive structure is like different. Like they're not gonna like okay, you know what you need to get this and that, this medicine and an MRI scan at this place, because like these private places they must have like agreements and whatnot. Like a commission structure, commission whatever, because they're private. They can do that. They can just like, oh, you know what, I need to partner up with like a hospital or something so that I can like redirect people that require an MRI, like recommendation, whatever you name it. You can set up contracts and stuff because you're a separate entity. But if you're like a public entity, a part of like the public system, then you can't really do or benefit from any of these things. So the incentive structure goes from you interacting with like a public professional. They will just say, okay, you know what, this is what you need. Go here because that's kind of where like things are available and optimal. But when you're dealing with private, they're gonna be like, you know what, go with this specific thing because that's where I get a cut. This is where I get like incentives. This is where I get whatever. The incentive structure just points to margin optimization when you're private over, actually your well-being. So I filtered out like private, but now I have to like actually reprioritize and ask the question on what is actually tangible and what actually works. Because again, architecture compatibility, like so, what actually leads to execution? And now suddenly all of the private stuff got reintroduced back into the list. Now with every why? That's the question. Yeah, the reason why is because a bunch of these private stuff are positioned in malls, and so instead of like thinking if it's like a cognitive thing, right, like reducing cognitive friction, cognitive load, whatever, minimizing like the whole thing, then what if I just like do something else and the diagnosis and whatever is just an adjacent thing? So instead of like, okay, let's go to this place, this like institution, whatever, and then get diagnosed and do like all of the paperwork. Now instead, I can shift the cognitive flow into just, let's go to a mall. I can do that. That's easy. I've done that before. So yeah, I'm gonna go to a mall that just has, okay, a place that can diagnose and shit. and then I'm gonna walk in there and like inquire and whatever, and then come back there because I enjoy long walks. So I'm gonna go for like a really really far mall, and B, malls malls are like low cognitive friction because like it has like a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff. It doesn't have like a very specific purpose that I have to like, you know, that I cognitively, it turns into like a cognitive sink. Like, a public hospital. Public hospital is a public hospital, so the cognitive sink is purely like hospital related, and I pick up on every stimuli that surround. I ate dry bread, crunchy bread, so I have like particles of bread in my throat. Okay, so yeah, cognitive sink of like hospitals and public institution, any like formal place essentially, is just like a single thing. So like I go there, everybody around me is like talking about their misery, their pain, the bill, whatever. All of my cognition will like that spiral into that sort of thing. And then it's just like doom and gloom pretty much. It's not really like a place of like happiness and joy and whatever. It's a place of like, people making their choices and seeing the consequences of them. But if I go to a mall, it's like the cognitive sink just is spread out, dispersed. Like I can think of like, oh, you know what? I can go to the supermarket and get some chips. I like chips. I can go to like, a local bakery. Whatever bakery is there. Get some baguettes and bread. I like bread. Or you know what? Hey, you know what? I like novelty. That's the thing as well. I love novelty. I love new things. So like, let's look around, look for new things. You see how like the cognitive flow is like isn't just one thing that like it branches out like immediately and then branches out even more. It disperses. So the cognitive, it's like was it like Learning How to Learn by Barbara Oakley? Focus mode and diffuse mode. So it's like by default, like it's just like a diffuse mode. Like it's you never enter like a focus state. It's just diffuse, 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 diffuse. And when you're in a state of diffuse, diffuse state, then you're not really, what's it called? Okay, so focus and diffuse thinking, diffuse cognition makes dissociating easy. And when you're dissociating, then dissociating is like the ultimate tool for like, cognitive load, whatever. Then at the like dead zero is like dissociation. In terms of like tangibility, of course. When you're dissociating, nothing really like it's just like it's just playing static pretty much. Brain goes static mode. So it's not really like zero, it's more like null, if that's like a thing. So like yeah, cognitively null. So the concept just evaporates entirely because that's the thing, right? Like the reality is like metaphysical. So like it's not really static of like, okay, I gotta like set cognitive load to 0 or 1 or whatever. There's like things essentially that just makes it like invalid entirely. The whole cognitive game becomes invalid if you just have a switch for dissociating. And I don't really have that. I don't really have like, okay, you know what, time to dissociate, and then I just like walk in like, maybe it's like a fucking strategy, man. Actually, you know what, Holly, there's some good contemplation right now. Maybe that works, huh? Like figure out like a way to like just like command dissociating at will, and then just go to like a local fucking institution and like do like the whole thing. That's like the answer, right? And also like, why am I doing like all of this? Why don't I just like ask for help? I don't want to, and also yeah, I can't. It's really hard for me. Okay. I've seen the data. I've seen the sentiment. I've seen like a lot of it. The statistics. I've picked up the patterns already. The pattern is people like me, high homelessness, die early, or the good ending, quote good, is just becoming a fucking liability. Okay, and I don't want to be a liability to like the people in my life because like I want them to live their life, in full. I don't want timeline A. I'm just like a fucking leech, man. That's it. Timeline B, I figure something out and fuck off entirely and let them live their life. I'm gonna go for B essentially. And then there's also C, of course. If I'm like really, really forced to turn into like a leech, man, I don't want to say it, but you get it already, okay? I don't want to like leech to like someone who like struggling and shit, man. I guess maybe there's like D, right? Like you don't really turn into a leech because of like hyperabundance. When you're like in an environment of hyperabundance, you're not like, it just doesn't work, the whole leeching thing. So like yeah, in an environment of like hyperabundance, I guess that's like where I can like just exist. Like, that's where I'm allowed. Mm. So like yeah, those are like the timelines, right? I don't want to go for like timeline A where like does it work? No, it doesn't work. Yeah, okay. The only thing that works is if like they're like super like giga rich, I guess, or whatever. That's the only like timeline. Yeah, the rest are just like doom, I guess, bad endings. So yeah, figuring things out, um, finding a flow now, and so now the idea is going to a mall and then getting diagnosed there essentially. And now I have to like think about, contemplate on like, okay, what is the friction now on like going there? Because why I can just like do it now, right? Why am I not doing it now? The answer is I don't really have shoes that's like optimal for 20 kilometers. I had like an old shoe and then I tried it on. And damn, yeah, it really doesn't fit me, man. It's just not wide enough because I have wide feet. So I have like a runway problem, yeah. Because like that's a thing as well when you've got like you know ADHD or whatever. Like you kind of struggle with income. I struggle with income, man. It's like super hard for me. I'm broke, dead broke. But like I have a runway, and I bled that runway just to get new shoes. The new shoes are like the Hoka Transport 2s. They are optimal for 20-kilometer pavement walks. Because the current shoes that I've got going is like all terrain, yeah, but it's not really like optimized for pavement. And like I said, I just like inefficiency. Okay, I like efficiency. So I'm gonna solve like the efficiency bit. Get new shoes. Go for the 20-kilometer bullshit, and then get diagnosed on a distant mall. Cause like I also like ask the question like, oh, why don't I just like go for like nearby ones because there's like a bunch of them, right? Like yeah, I have like a threat thing when it comes to proximity. Proximity is like a no. I dislike entanglement. I dislike all of that. Proximity, major risk, no. So it has to be far. Has to be far. Oh, also has to be female. I don't like dudes. I don't like dudes. So it has to be female professional. Has to be far, and has to be in a, I guess not necessarily a mall, but like a place where I can like that doesn't require focus. Doesn't the incentive structure, the cognitive incentive structure is diffuse. And malls is like the best thing, but maybe there's like a park version or whatever where like, oh, you know what, I can like stare at the trees and shit. So who knows? But so far it's just malls and stuff. So yeah, girl, really far, mall, and that's like architecturally compatible for me to like get diagnosed and stuff, get my PWD ID, and like from there like get like assistance, I guess. Is there like any assistance when you get like the ID thing, when you get like disability, disability perks? And I mean, if I even get them, man, it's a thing as well. Like, nah, don't think about it. That's like the friction as well. I thought about it. Like, oh, if I go there, like, no one, yeah, no one's really like, like, when I like analyze the incentive structure, there's no like will help you or wants to help you. It's just get your money. There's like nothing really. There's no like, okay, give this guy like the diagnosis he wants and needs that will help him out. No, it's just get money. I don't really see like that's why like I thought of like oh, it has to be like public or whatever, because they just their salaries like isn't based on like you know isn't relative to their throughput or whatever. It's just government, right? If I understand correctly. And yeah, I wish there were like more tools or whatever, but like yeah, you gotta work with what you got, and there's also always like worse places, yeah. So yeah, that's like the topic for today, I guess. Um, Getting diagnosed as an undiagnosed old person thing.